Welcome back to the workshop for another rusty production. Today I'm going to try my hand at creating a spring fuller from this 10mm round stock. So those of you who have been watching my journey and my creation of my anvil, I've put the hardy hole in recently and it's now about creating tools for that hardy hole. Now the next tool I'm going to create is a spring fuller, and I'll put in the comments below, or at least the description below, some videos that I've got some inspiration from that are going to inform some of the work that I'm doing today. But as we know, I am a complete novice and beginner blacksmith, so anything that you see me doing is trial and error. Do not take this as an instructional video, more a case of there's a bit of entertainment and you might learn something along the way. What we're going to be using is this 10mm round stock to create the fuller edge, and I'll just quickly show you the anvil just so you've got a bit of a reminder about what I'm working with. It's not a large area, so I'm not going to be able to create a spring fuller that has like this sort of range to it. It's only going to be about that much. So I'll just show you what I'm talking about on the anvil. So here's the anvil in question. It is a homemade job, but it is doing the job that I need. Here's the hardy hole that I've added on, and for anybody who's wondering, all these pieces of crazy welding are there. I've left them there on purpose because it looks awesome. But I guess what I'm showing you today is this is the space that we've got to create the fuller edges. So it's not going to give me a lot of space, but I'm going to be using that for a number of different projects that I've got upcoming. One of them is going to be taking this old sledge, which I played with in an earlier video, and actually creating a rounding hammer out of it. So I'm going to actually be fullering in on these edges as part of that project. So that's why I'm making the spring fuller today. So before I get started as far as heating this up, I'm not working with a lot of material. It does look like there's plenty, but I'm actually going to have to fold this so that I can create the insert to actually go into the hardy hole itself, and I'm going to need at least sort of this amount left over on the edge. So I'm going to put a few marks in here just using a punch. I'll just put them in cold just to be sure that I'm not sort of overreaching on how much material I'm going to be working with. So I'll just mark that there. That's that point. And then we're going to come over here, we're going to bend it round. So where we want to bend it is probably around there, because we're going to have to fold it in on itself as well. So start from there, I think. Now you'll see in the videos that I actually put into the description that many of the people there actually took more time with the measurement because they actually knew what they were trying to accomplish. But with mine, I'm not 100% sure yet. So I'm just going to use some variable distances, and then I'll use those as measurements to actually do my additional steps. So I'll get the forge heated up, and then we'll bring it back for a bit of bending. For those who haven't seen it before, I use a bit of charcoal in the center of the forge to get it going, and this is the result. Okay, so hopefully you can see those two marks on there. That's where I'm going to start my bends, and I'll get that on the fire now. Going to heat it up through here. The mark is there, so I'm just going to heat it up and bend it back out as well before I go and fold this over. Just trying to make sure I get the right marks without burning myself. Okay, that's about the right spot. So I'll tighten up these angles, but the main thing I've got to do is between here and there, I don't know if you can see that, between here and there, I've got to fold this back on itself so it actually becomes the right thickness to hold very tightly inside here. You can see like the two folds actually just get right in there. Once I fold it up to 4, then we're actually going to get a nice tight fit. So you're going to have to create a quite sharp angle to fold that back on itself. So wish me the best of luck. Alright, so we've got it nice and hot. Let's see if we can actually get a nice angle on that. Alright, folds in there. It's a little bit short. Let's just tighten up these angles and see how we go. Just got to use the vise to tighten up on some of those angles. Definitely tighter. Now let's finish off this chunk, make sure it fits in the hardy correctly. Alright, so it doesn't quite fit, so I'm just going to tighten it up a little. Perfect. Alright, stage 1 complete. Now the next thing I've got to do is I've got to bring this part back here and score out some areas that I'm going to actually use to create the spring, which will be a sort of a rounded spring for this final piece to come back and be about the same width along here. So I've got about that much to work with, so I can flatten out and create my rounded spring. That's the tea we're looking for. So just got to be a little bit careful because this is still hot, but I'm going to take down some measurements to start. So basically we're looking at 17 centimeters or just under 7 inches, which is pretty good, I reckon. And we've got to use that on the other side, so we need to come up to about 17 here, and that leaves us with how much room we've got for our spring. So ideally we want to come out about 1 inch from the edge here, which is about 2.5 centimeters, before we actually put our indentation so that we can start the spring piece. So what I want to do is put a couple of little marks in here so I can see what I'm working with. So I just got to be a little bit careful because it is still hot, so I'll just grab a glove. Alright, got my glove. I've also got my holdfast tool, so not necessary for this really, but I might just give it a go. Because it should hold down the piece that I need so I can actually make my scores in there. Let's make it a little bit easier for me. While I grab my punch, which I threw onto the table somewhere. There it is. And we want to come out about 2.5 centimeters, so we'll say there. Say here. That's where we want to do that. Put a mark in there. And then ideally we want to come back the other way, so I'll just release this, and we'll come back the other way. Knock that in. Alright, so we're coming back to 20. 20 is right here. How good are these tools, eh? Alright, that's our mark in there. So ideally, pull this one out. That's the space we have to work with to create our spring. So from here to there. So what I'm going to be doing down next is I'm going to be setting down on this one that way. Is that the right spot? I don't think it is. There it is, sorry. Between here and there. The hold fast tool just gives a little bit of a shine, so I've just got to get rid of that. Ignore that one. And we'll set down on that point, and I've got to set down that way over the top when I'll heat it up, and then I'll come back to the other side and we'll set down on the opposite. So we'll come down that way, and then we'll be able to flatten it out through that middle part. So we'll heat it up again, I'll come back. Alright, so hopefully you can see that there. Starting from about here, it's very hot still, right through to here, I've about halved the material. So I now got to basically kick this piece back so it's actually pointing back out, and then create a loop with this spring so that it comes around and forms the double fuller. So I'll heat up this end here. We'll get it pointing out, and then we'll bring it back round. Oop, that's a bit hot. You know what? I think cool that side down a bit. I'm having a bit of trouble getting the that around into a loop. Basically I need it to come round like that and finish about there. So clearly that's not right. I keep bending it. So just be careful around here and just open that up more. That just about what I'm after. So you see there, it's very hot actually. I've just got to tighten that round a little bit so that this gets closer to this edge here, but that's near the loop that I'm actually after. If you have a look here, it's not quite a loop. I've squashed it a bit, but I can fix that by actually bringing this section out more flat, so it's just going to come round a little bit more. That's pretty much where I want it, just a little bit further back, but then we're just about there. There you go. That's more square. Now we just need to get this loop to come up and around a little. Okay, we're just going to do a final tidy up and fitting for here. So I'll put it in here. You'll see that I'm just going to, I've got the base there heated up, and I'm just going to squish this down a little bit so it gets a little bit more flat. And hopefully we can move it, push this arm in so that it comes down at a V shape. So that's the intention. Let's see what happens. Come around there, right? I'm just going to have to put a wedge in, and the wedge I'm going to use is actually going to be something that I'm planning on using. So this itself should help declare the size a little bit. Okay, that's where we want it. So then all I've got to do is bend this end down. Right, so that's a little bit loose in here. It's not too bad, but if I want to, I can just open up that wedge a little bit, and I might actually do that just so that it locks right in there. So, look, it's not 100% pretty, certainly not a fail either. I might heat this last part up here. Now I saw that one of the guys that will be in this link, I think his name's Nathan, he quenched even the mild steel, and the idea is that there is some carbon in this mild steel, even though it is mild, so it will harden it a little. It'll actually make it a little bit tougher by doing that. So I like that idea. I will actually do that, and then we'll get it cool and try it out. That's the effect we're after, fullering on both edges at the same time. Alright, so there we have it, our spring fuller. You see there, it's not pretty. No, it's definitely not pretty, but neither are any of the things that I finish up. But it is practical, it does work, and as you could see just before, it does what I'm trying to achieve, which is to actually be able to fuller a piece on two edges. So, yeah, pretty happy with the result. Took a little bit longer to get to here than I thought it would. It springs back up, which is the whole purpose of it, and it actually fits neatly into the hardy hole. So pretty happy with the result, and would love to hear what you think of it. So please either like the video if you liked it, give me a comment if you've got any feedback, or if you've got anything to relay to me. Subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the notification bell if you want to actually be notified when a new video is released. The idea is to release one of these every single week. And until next time, thank you so much for watching.